our presentation of Bridges to Reading, Increasing Young Children's Reading Motivation Through Diverse Family Literacies. And just like I said before, this was a project between Westminster Department of Education and Camel Elementary School. So here are just some demographics on Camel. Camel Elementary School is in Camel, Ohio, outside of Youngstown, and it is a very culturally diverse school with many Caucasian, African American, Greek, and Hispanic families. It's also considered low socioeconomic status. Here are some goals that we had for our project. So for us as pre-service teachers, we hope to learn how to value families' diverse use of literacy, as well as learn new ways to teach reading in ways that would be meaningful and motivational to our students. And for the families that we were working with, we hope to show them that they were already reading so much outside of school with their families, and how important these everyday texts found in the community and home really are to their students. We looked a lot into action research and read many articles on family partnership research. And this type of research really acknowledges the family as each child's first learning partner and says that learning does begin at home long before school even starts. And it really emphasizes how important it is to build a bridge between the home and school life, and to really learn what that child's doing outside of school. As you can see, this is a picture of some of my first graders, and this is just to represent a statistic that we came across that compared time at home versus time in school. So in 1 year, children spend 75% of their waking hours at home or outside of school, while only spending 25% of their waking hours in school. So we thought this was a pretty significant statistic and really showed us that this project was very important. And really the child is the one that's going to be succeeding when you look at what they're doing outside of school and are able to value that inside the classroom as well.
Okay, so our project dealt with four classrooms at Camel Elementary, 1 first grade classroom and 3 kindergarten classrooms. And what we did was we went out and bought simple canvas bags and wrote, "We love to read," and fun, exciting things for the kids to look at. And inside the bag for kindergarten, we sent home a book for them to keep at home called I Read Signs, and it was just all about signs in the community that they probably already know how to read. So showing them examples of everyday text that they know how to read. And then first graders got Read Anything Good Lately, and it's an ABC book filled with additional examples of things that they can read at home. And also, we sent home a newsletter explaining what we were doing and explaining the project. So the newsletter asked families to find at least 2 artifacts at home that their child could read that is in their everyday life. So we got a lot of garbage, and those are some examples. So the stuff that we got back, those are some examples, and there's another board up here. We categorized them into 4 different groups: recreational, environmental, occupational, and informational. And obviously recreational would be something that they read for enjoyment. Environmental is things that are all around them. Occupational would be like their homework, or for us, maybe an invoice of something you buy at work. And then informational would be a newspaper article or something that you were reading to gain more information. So these are the examples and some things that we categorized. The newspaper article that we received was informational. The Wii game was recreational. The 2 food labels were environmental, and the CD was a recreational item. So this is the data that we collected. We obviously received a lot more environmental than recreational, informational, and occupational, because environmental text is things that they are able to see and it's all around them. So it's probably a lot easier to get a hold of than recreational, informational, and occupational. So some of the insights that we got from just the items that we received is just that we can show students that they are able to read so much more than they think, rather than just reading their sight words as I can read or things like that. So it was a lot, it was mind-opening to see what they can read at home.
One insight that I gained from this project was just how motivational these kinds of things, when you're bringing them into the classroom, it's very engaging and it's very motivational to bring things from their home lives and turn that into what they're doing in the classroom as well.
felt like you could really find applications to use these everyday texts across a variety of ages, a variety of subjects, and really makes learning more purposeful and relevant to the student.
So after we received all of the bags back and we categorized our items into informational and recreational, we really wanted to use this information into our classroom. We wanted to say to the students, you brought something into me that you're reading at home. How can I value that? How can I use that into the classroom? So this is an example of something Marina did with her kindergarten students. She was reading Bears Goes On, which was part of her Basil series, and she noticed that there was an OP word family, and she just so happened to get a Pop-Tart label. So as you can see, they were sorting the word families like that. Olivia, with her first graders, after receiving an example of recreational text of the we directions, they did a sequencing activity where the directions were all scrambled and they had to put them in chronological order. And both Marina and Olivia can attest to how excited their students were and how motivated they were, because this was something that they brought in and something that they can actually read. With my kindergarten students, I knew that they needed more practice reading and writing their sight words, and so I, could you go to the next slide, created a little worksheet that had 8 sentences that had most of their sight words and then one example of everyday text. So they would read the sentence, and then on a half a sheet of paper they had all of the pictures, and they would cut it out and glue it onto the worksheet. And what I found really interesting was that when they would see the Pizza Joe's label in Times New Roman font on the worksheet, they weren't able to realize that they knew what that was. But if they saw that Pizza Joe's label with the red, with the blue, they immediately knew what it was and was able to read it. And so we are interested in seeing how can we bridge the everyday text that is in their world and to bring it into school and say, yes, you're reading at home, and what you're reading at home is valuable to school as well.
And something that both Olivia and I did in our first and kindergarten level classrooms, and Ari is currently doing with her kindergarten students, was make class books using the pieces of everyday text that we got back. You can see some of my kindergarten students here reading together a decodable reader, which is mostly composed of sight words. And a lot of times the students really just kind of memorize these books. They don't have a lot of meaning to them. And on the other picture, you can see one of my students holding our class book. You go to the next slide. We found, these are some examples of the pages in the book, just the writing samples showing the pictures of the students that wrote them. We found that they had incredibly high percentage of conventional spelling whenever using the everyday text in their writing and reading samples. And these are just compared to numbers that we felt in regular writing samples, the students would not achieve these high statistics. So they were more motivated to spell them correctly. We also sent out some family surveys so the families could give us some feedback based on what they thought of the project. And these are some themes that we found as a result of the survey. A thriving environment. So there's a parent quote there. This particular parent felt that the material created a more relaxed learning environment. So their students knew these pieces of environmental text, they could read them, and they didn't feel stressed out whenever they had to apply them to their classroom projects. Reaching independent skills. Again, there's 2 parent quotes here. It helps the students reach their goals more easily. The one parent stated that whenever their student chose to read environmental text, they read it because they wanted to, not because they felt like they had to. And the student's capability. One parent stated that a goal they had for their child was to read and sound out words without getting discouraged and giving up. And something that we found through this project was if a student sees a piece of environmental text in a sentence, they're more motivated to want to read the words around the environmental text. They are more motivated to want to see what it says, and it just pushes them farther academically.
Now to just jump to what we learned from this project, I think I learned how important these kinds of collaborations are with families, and in the future I would hopefully like to also pursue another project like this, and really just to convey to parents that they are teaching their children so much outside of school, and that I also have a lot to learn from them. It's not just me teaching them.
I felt like I learned how easy it really can be to incorporate families into your everyday classroom, and also that there is so much you can do besides reading curriculums and basals to help your students learn how to read.
I know you wanted to say, I thought that through action-based research, the students become a bigger part of the learning. They feel that they are more involved, and that really motivates and drives them to succeed more.
And I just really enjoyed reminding families that not all the learning that their child is doing is happening at school, and just reminding them that they're a really, really important part of the process of them learning to read and learning really everything at home. So we just wanted to thank the Westminster Education Department and the Camel Elementary teachers for allowing us to do this research and for giving us the opportunity.
As well as the Drinko Senate for giving us so much money
Early on in your goals, you had noted parenthetically including phonics, and I wondered why it was parenthetical, and I wondered why you presented it like that.
Can you go back to that one so I can see specifically? I think for us, when we went into this project, we didn't want to wipe out completely what was already taking place in the schools. And even though we believe in this project and what we were doing with it, we knew that realistically, there's still basals and there's still reading curriculums and standards that have to be followed. So I think that we were trying to find a balance between what's already happening in the classroom and also a way that we could kind of push it and try something new. So I think, someone else will say something, I think that that's kind of where we were. We didn't want to completely take out everything that was already happening in these classrooms.
It was meant as like a supplemental tool.
I was just going to add to that. We wanted to look at reading as a whole language approach, but not ignore the fact that especially with the age group we were working with, phonics can really, really be helpful and developmentally. They need that a lot of the time.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
There are people in this room who are going to be parents, I'm assuming, and perhaps their child is in 3rd or 4th grade. What does everyday text look like in 3rd or 4th grade, or even middle school, high school?
Well, I don't know, I'm a very avid Chipotle goer. And Chipotle always has those like great paragraphs and stories on their cups and their bags. So even just sitting in Chipotle eating a burrito, just to have a middle schooler read your Chipotle cup. I think that's a great everyday text that obviously I always want to read what's on my cup. So, or even the back of a cereal box, if they can read the nutritional facts, or if they can read what's inside of their cereal, their ingredients, things like that, with more complicated words like that. I think too, especially with an older age group, you could focus a lot on music or things that they recreationally are appealing to in their everyday life, and that could be tied into.
I think at the high school level, social media, you read all the time when you go on the computer.
Correcting
Kids-
sentences.
Kids are on the iPads all the time. You're reading and you don't even know that you are at that high school level. So I think technology is really, really a big thing.
Are any of the teachers here? I'm trying to look.
Oh, sure.
Okay, hi. I'm curious to see if you think that this study that they did, what influence it will have on your teaching practices, or how you might teach again in the future.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity to bring into it's another bridge. That's the buzzword with us. And Dr. Literacies is it's a bridge, and I think that it was very beneficial. It was beneficial for all. There are 5 kindergarten teachers in our building, and we are in age from 35 to 65. So, and we are all at different places, and we've all been taught different ways about how to teach reading. Now, we all have a reading series to teach with, and that's our minimal, so we can add to that. So being enlightened by something like this would definitely make it a part of our reading for the future. So, and we've worked with Westminster for quite a few years now, and every year we seem to add something more to our repertoire that the next year's students get to benefit from. So it's a learning experience for all of us.
Okay, well, I wanted to thank you all for coming, and can we give our speakers a round of applause?